Far from the Sun, orbiting the giant planet Saturn, there is a small, icy moon called Enceladus. At first glance, it doesn't look special. It's only about 300 miles wide, covered in bright ice, and colder than almost anywhere else in the solar system. A world this small should have frozen solid billions of years ago, with no heat, no activity, and nothing changing on its surface. But Enceladus is not frozen and silent. Spacecraft flying past the moon discovered something no one expected to see. Enormous jets of water shooting out into space, spraying ice and vapor thousands of miles above the surface. Something inside this tiny moon is still active, something warm enough to keep water from freezing, even this far from the Sun. And the more scientists studied Enceladus, the stranger it became. Because beneath its frozen surface, this small moon may be hiding one of the most important environments we have ever found in the solar system. Enceladus is one of the many moons orbiting Saturn, but compared to some of the others, it is surprisingly small. With a diameter of only about 300 miles, it is barely large enough for gravity to pull it into a nearly round shape. Moons this size usually do not stay active for very long. When a moon first forms, heat from impacts and radioactive elements keeps its interior warm. Over time, that heat slowly escapes into space. On small worlds, this happens quickly. The interior cools, the surface becomes rigid, and geological activity stops. Many moons in the outer solar system followed this path. They formed early, cooled down, and have remained mostly unchanged for billions of years. Their surfaces are covered in craters, frozen solid, with no sign of movement beneath the ice. Enceladus should have been the same. It orbits far from the Sun, where temperatures are extremely low, and it does not have enough mass to hold heat for long periods of time. There is no obvious reason for the moon to still be active today. By all expectations, it should be a quiet, frozen world like so many others. But even before spacecraft visited Saturn, astronomers noticed something unusual. Unlike many small moons, the surface of Enceladus looked strangely bright. Its ice reflected sunlight almost perfectly, as if the surface had been refreshed recently. Instead of being darkened by age and impacts, parts of the moon appeared young. Something was changing the surface, and whatever it was, it meant Enceladus might not be as dead as it should be. In 2004, the Cassini spacecraft arrived at Saturn after traveling for nearly 7 years through the solar system. Its mission was to study the planet, its rings, and its many moons in greater detail than ever before. At first, Enceladus was not expected to be one of the most interesting targets. It was small, distant, and assumed to be inactive. But as Cassini began flying past the moon, its instruments started to detect something unexpected. During one of the early flybys, sensors measured tiny particles near Enceladus that should not have been there. The spacecraft passed through a faint cloud of ice grains and vapor, as if material was drifting away from the moon's surface. At first, scientists thought the particles might be coming from Saturn's rings, but the more Cassini observed, the clearer it became that the source was Enceladus itself. Then came an even bigger surprise. Infrared instruments on the spacecraft detected heat coming from the moon's south pole. Not sunlight reflected from the surface, but actual warmth rising from below the ice. The temperatures were still extremely cold by Earth's standards, but far warmer than they should have been for a moon this small and this far from the Sun. Something inside Enceladus was producing energy. That alone was strange enough. A small world like this should have lost most of its internal heat billions of years ago. There was no obvious reason for it to still be warm today. As Cassini made more close passes, the evidence kept growing. The particles, the heat, the bright surface, all pointed to the same conclusion. Enceladus was not a frozen, inactive moon. something beneath the ice was still alive. As Cassini continued to fly past Enceladus, the spacecraft was directed closer to the Moon's south pole, where the strange heat readings had been detected. What it found there was unlike anything scientists had expected from such a small, icy world. Along the surface near the South Pole were long, dark fractures cutting across the ice. These cracks stretched for dozens of miles and looked different from the heavily cratered terrain seen elsewhere on the Moon. The region appeared smoother, younger, as if something had been reshaping it from below. Then Cassini flew directly through the cloud of particles it had detected earlier. Instruments on the spacecraft measured water vapor, ice grains, and simple organic molecules streaming away from the surface. The particles were not drifting randomly. They were coming from the fractures themselves, blasting outward in narrow jets that rose high above the Moon before spreading into space. Enceladus was spraying water into orbit. These geysers were powerful enough to send material hundreds of miles above the surface, feeding a faint ring of ice particles that surrounds Saturn. Instead of being a dead, frozen world, the Moon was actively releasing water from its interior. This discovery changed everything. To produce jets like these, something beneath the ice had to be warm. Ice alone could not create this kind of activity. There had to be a source of energy inside the Moon, strong enough to keep part of it from freezing solid. And if water was coming from below the surface, then the most likely explanation was also the most surprising. Somewhere under the ice, there might be liquid. After the discovery of the geysers, scientists needed to explain how such a small moon could stay active. Enceladus is far too small to hold on to heat for billions of years on its own, and sunlight at Saturn's distance is far too weak to warm the surface. Yet the jets of water proved that something inside the Moon was still warm enough to melt ice. The answer appears to come from Saturn itself. As Enceladus orbits the giant planet, it is constantly being pulled by Saturn's gravity. The force is not perfectly even. Because the Moon's orbit is slightly stretched, the strength of the pull changes as it moves closer to and farther from the planet. This causes the interior of Enceladus to flex very slightly, over and over again. That flexing generates heat. The process is called tidal heating, and it can keep the inside of a moon warm even when the surface is frozen. Each time Enceladus is squeezed and stretched by Saturn's gravity, friction builds up inside the rock and ice beneath the crust. Over long periods of time, that friction produces enough energy to keep parts of the interior from freezing solid. Data from Cassini suggests that beneath the thick outer shell of ice, there is a layer of liquid water. Instead of being frozen all the way through, Enceladus may contain a global ocean hidden below the surface. The cracks near the South Pole could reach down into this ocean, allowing water to escape as vapor and ice when pressure builds below the crust. This would explain the heat, the plumes, and the unusually young surface. But it also leads to an even more surprising possibility. On Earth, liquid water, heat, and the right chemistry create the conditions where life can exist. If Enceladus has all three, then this tiny moon may not just be active. It may be one of the most promising places to search for life in the entire solar system. Liquid water alone does not mean life exists, but on Earth, every place where liquid water, heat, and the right chemistry come together, life can survive. That is why the discovery of a hidden ocean inside Enceladus immediately made the Moon one of the most interesting places in the solar system. Cassini's instruments found more than just water in the plumes. As the spacecraft flew through the jets, it detected salts, simple organic molecules, and tiny particles that appear to have formed in warm water deep below the surface. These materials suggest that the ocean inside Enceladus is not frozen and still. but active. One of the most important clues came from the detection of molecular hydrogen in the plume. On Earth, hydrogen like this is often produced near hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor, where hot water rises from the planet's interior and reacts with rock. These environments do not need sunlight. They are powered by heat and chemical reactions, and they support entire ecosystems of living organisms. If similar conditions exist inside Enceladus, then the Moon may have all the basic ingredients needed for life. There is liquid water, there is heat from tidal forces, and there are chemicals that could provide energy. Unlike Mars or Venus, where scientists must land on the surface to search for clues, Enceladus is already sending material from its ocean into space. The plumes act like natural samples, carrying particles from deep inside the Moon, where spacecraft can pass through them and analyze their composition. So far, no clear evidence of life has been found. But the data collected by Cassini shows that Enceladus is not just a frozen world. It is an active ocean moon, with conditions that may be similar to some of the environments where life began on Earth. And that may make it one of the most important places to explore in the future. There are several moons in the solar system that may hide oceans beneath their frozen surfaces. Europa, one of Jupiter's largest moons, is believed to contain even more water than Earth. Titan has lakes of liquid methane on its surface and a complex atmosphere unlike anything else we know. But Enceladus stands out for a different reason. It is one of the few places where we can study an ocean world without landing on it. The geysers at the Moon's south pole continuously throw material into space, sending water vapor, ice, and particles from deep inside the Moon far above the surface. When Cassini flew through these plumes, it was able to analyze the contents directly, as if the Moon itself were releasing samples from its hidden ocean. No drilling through miles of ice was needed. No landing on the surface was required. The Moon was already revealing what was inside. This makes Enceladus one of the easiest ocean worlds to explore, at least compared to other icy moons. Future missions could fly through the plumes again, with more advanced instruments, searching for complex molecules, unusual chemical patterns, or other signs that something is happening beneath the ice. Scientists are especially interested in Enceladus because the conditions there appear to be active right now. The heat from tidal forces has not stopped. The geysers are still erupting, and the ocean may have existed for a very long time. If life ever began inside that hidden sea, it may still be there today. That possibility makes this small moon far more important than its size would suggest. Enceladus should have been a frozen, inactive world, lost among the many icy bodies orbiting the outer planets. Instead, it turned out to be one of the most dynamic places we have ever found beyond Earth. And it may be hiding an ocean that we have only just begun to understand. Enceladus is one of the smallest moons in the outer solar system, yet it turned out to be one of the most surprising. A world that should have frozen solid billions of years ago is still active today, sending jets of water into space from a hidden ocean beneath its surface. Heat from Saturn's gravity keeps the interior warm. Cracks in the ice release material into orbit, and the plumes carry clues about what lies deep below. Liquid water, energy, and the right chemistry, all the ingredients that life needs, may exist inside this tiny moon. We still don't know what is hidden in that ocean. We don't know how long it has been there, and we don't know if anything has ever lived in it. But Enceladus has shown us that even the smallest worlds can hold the biggest mysteries. Far from the sun, beneath miles of ice, there may be places in the solar system that are still alive in ways we never expected, and one of them is orbiting Saturn right now. Join us next time as we explore more mysteries of the universe.